The tears that kept Buttercup company the remainder of the day were not at all like those that had blinded her in the tree trunk. But those were noisy and hot, they pulsed. These were silent and steady, and all they did was remind her that she wasn't good enough. She was 17, and every male she'd ever known had crumbled at her feet, and it meant nothing. The one time it mattered, she wasn't good enough. All she knew really was riding, and how was that to interest a man when that man had been looked at by the Countess? It was dusk when she heard footsteps outside her door. Then a knock. Buttercup dried her eyes. Another knock. "Whoever is that?" Buttercup yawned finally. "Westley." Buttercup lounged across the bed. "Westley?" she said. "Do I know any Oh, farm boy, it's you. How droll." She went to her door, unlocked it, and said in her fanciest tone, "I'm ever so glad you stopped by. I've been feeling just ever so slummy about the little joke I played on you this morning. Of course you knew I wasn't for a moment serious, or at least I thought you knew, but then, just when you started closing the door, I thought for one dreary instant that perhaps I'd done my little jest a bit too convincingly, and, poor dear thing, you might have thought I meant what I said, when of course we both knew the total impossibility of that ever happening. I've come to say goodbye." Buttercup's heart buckled, but she still held to fancy. "You're going to sleep, you mean, and you've come to say good night? How thoughtful of you, farm boy, showing me that you forgave me for my little morning's tease. I certainly appreciate your thoughtfulness, and—" He cut her off. "I'm leaving." "Leaving?" The floor began to ripple. She held to the door frame. "Now?" "Yes. Because of what I said this morning?" "Yes. I frightened you away, didn't I? I could kill my tongue." She shook her head and shook her head. "Well, it's done. You made your decision. Just remember this. I won't take you back when she's done with you. I don't care if you beg." He just looked at her. Buttercup hurried on. "Just because you're beautiful and perfect, it's made you conceited. You think people can't get tired of you. Well, you're wrong. They can, and she will. But besides, you're too poor. I'm going to America to seek my fortune." This was just after America, but long before fortunes. "A ship sails soon from London. There is great opportunity in America. I'm going to take advantage of it. I've been training myself in my hovel. I've taught myself not to need sleep. A few hours only. I'll take a 10-hour day job, and then I'll take another 10-hour day job, and I'll save every penny from both except what I need to eat to keep strong. And when I have enough, I'll buy a farm and build a house and make a big bed big enough for two. You're just crazy if you think she's going to be happy in some run-down farmhouse in America, not with what she spends on clothes. Stop telling about the Countess, as a special favor, before you drive me mad." Buttercup looked at him. "Don't you understand anything that's going on?" Buttercup shook her head. Westley shook his too. "You never have been the brightest, I guess. Do you love me, Westley? Is that it?" He couldn't believe it. "Do I love you? My God, if your love were a grain of sand, mine would be a universe of beaches. If your love were—" "I don't understand that first one yet," Buttercup interrupted. She was starting to get very excited now. "Let me get this straight. Are you saying my love is the size of a grain of sand and yours is this other thing? Images just confuse me so. Is this universal business of yours bigger than my sand? Help me, Westley. I have the feeling we're on the verge of something just terribly important." "I have stayed these years in my hovel because of you. I have taught myself languages because of you. I have made my body strong because I thought you might be pleased by a strong body. I have lived my life with only the prayer that some sudden dawn you might glance in my direction. I have not known a moment in years when the sight of you did not send my heart careening against my rib cage. I have not known a night when your visage did not accompany me to sleep. There has not been a morning when you did not flutter behind in my waking eyelids. Is any of this getting through to you, Buttercup, or do you want me to go on for a while? Never stop." "There has not been. If you're teasing me, Westley, I'm just going to kill you. How can you even dream I might be teasing?" "Well, you haven't once said you loved me. That's all you need? Easy. I love you." "Okay, want it louder? I love you. Spell it out, should I? I-L-O-V-E-Y-O-U. Want it backward? You love I. You're teasing now, aren't you?" "A little, maybe. I've been saying it so long to you, you just wouldn't listen. Every time you said, 'Farm boy, do this,' you thought I was answering as you wish, but that's only because you were hearing wrong. I love you was what it was, but you never heard, and never heard. I hear you now, and I promise you this. I will never love anyone else, only Westley, until I die. He nodded, took a step away. I'll send for you soon, believe me. Would my Westley ever lie? He took another step. I'm late. I must go. I hate it, but I must. The ship sails soon, and London is far. I understand. He reached out with his right hand. Buttercup found it very hard to breathe. Goodbye. She managed to raise her right hand to his. They shook. Goodbye, he said again. She made a little nod. He took a third step, not turning. She watched him. He turned, and the words ripped out of her. Without one kiss, they fell into each other's arms. There have been 5 great kisses since 1642 BC, where Saul and Delilah Corn's inadvertent discovery swept across Western civilization. Before then, couples hooked thumbs, and the precise rating of kisses is a terribly difficult thing, often leading to great controversy, because although everyone agrees with the formula of affection times purity times intensity times duration, no one has ever been completely satisfied with how much weight each element should receive. But on any system, there are 5 that everyone agrees deserves full marks. Well, this one left them all behind. The first morning after Westley's departure, Buttercup thought she was entitled to do nothing more than sit around moping and feeling sorry for herself. After all, the love of her life had fled. Life had no meaning. How could you face the future, etc., etc.? But after 2 seconds of that, she realized that Westley was out in the world now, getting nearer and nearer to London, and what if a beautiful city girl caught his fancy while she was just back here moldering? Or worse, what if he got to America and worked his jobs and built his farm and made their bed and sent for her, and when she got there he would look at her and say, I'm sending you back, the moping has destroyed your eyes, the self-pity has taken your skin, you're a sloppy-looking creature, I'm marrying an Indian girl who lives in a teepee nearby and is always in the peak of condition. Buttercup ran to her bedroom mirror. Oh, Westley, she said, I must never disappoint you. And she hurried downstairs to where her parents were squabbling, 16 to 13, and not past breakfast yet. I need your advice, she interrupted. What can I do to improve my personal appearance? Start by bathing, her father said, and do something with your hair while you're at it, her mother said. Unearth the territory behind your ears. Neglect not your knees. That will do nicely for starters, Buttercup said. She shook her head. Gracious, but isn't it easy? But it isn't easy being tidy. Undaunted, she set to work. Every morning she awoke, if possible by dawn, and got the farm chores finished immediately. There was much to be done now, with Westley gone, and more than that, ever since the Count had visited, everyone in the area had increased his milk order, so there was no time for self-improvement until well into the afternoon. But then she really set to work. First, a good cold bath. Then, while her hair was drying, she would slave after fixing her figure faults. One of her elbows was just too bony, the opposite wrist was not bony enough. And exercise what remained of her baby fat, little left now, she was nearly 18, and brush her hair. Her hair was the color of autumn, and it had never been cut, so 1,000 strokes took time, but she didn't mind, because Westley had never seen it clean like this, and wouldn't be surprised when she stepped off the boat in America. Her skin was the color of wintry cream, and she scrubbed her every inch while past glistening, and that wasn't much fun, really, but wouldn't Westley be pleased with how clean she was as she stepped off the boat in America? And very quickly now, her potential began to be realized. From 20th, she jumped within 2 weeks to 15th, an unheard of change in such a time. But 3 weeks after that, she was already 9th and moving. The competition was tremendous now, but the day after she was 9th, a 3-page letter arrived from Westley in London, and just reading it over put her up to 8th. That was really what was doing it for her more than anything. Her love for Westley would not stop growing, and people were dazzled when she delivered milk in the morning. Some people were only able to gape at her, but many talked, and those that did found her warmer and gentler than she had ever been before. Even the village girls would nod and smile now, and some of them would ask after Westley, which was a mistake unless you happen to have a lot of spare time, because when someone asked Buttercup how Westley was, well, she told them. He was supreme as usual, he was spectacular, he was singularly fabulous. Oh, she could go on for hours. Sometimes it got a little tough for the listener to maintain strict attention, but they did their best, since Buttercup loved him so completely, which was why Wesley's death hit her the way it did. He had written to her just before he sailed for America. The Queen's Pride was his ship, and he loved her. That was the way his sentences always went. It is raining today, and I love you. My cold is better, and I love you. Say hello to horse, and I love you. Like that. Then there were no letters, but that was natural. He was at sea. Then she heard. She came home from delivering the milk, and her parents were wooden. Off the Carolina coast, her father whispered. Her mother whispered, without warning, at night. What? From Buttercup. Pirates, said her father. Buttercup thought she'd better sit down. Quiet in the room. He's been taken prisoner then? Buttercup managed. Her mother made a no. It was the Roberts, her father said. The dread pirate Roberts. Oh, Buttercup said. The one who never leaves survivors. Yes, her father said. Quiet in the room. Suddenly, Buttercup was talking very fast. Was he stabbed? Did he drown? Did they cut his throat to sleep? Did they wake him, do you suppose? Perhaps they whipped him dead. She stood up then. I'm getting silly, forgive me. She shook her head, as if the way they got it mattered. Excuse me, please. With that, she hurried to her room. She stayed there many days. At first, her parents tried to lure her, but she would not have it. They took to leaving the food outside her room, and she took bits and shreds enough to stay alive. There was never noise inside, no wailing, no bitter sounds. And when she at last came out, her eyes were dry. Her parents stared up from their silent breakfast at her. They both started to rise, but she put a hand out, stopped them. I can care for myself, please, and she set about getting some food. They watched her closely. In point of fact, she never looked as well. She had entered her room just an impossibly lovely girl. The woman who emerged was a trifle thinner, a great deal wiser, and ocean sadder. This one understood the nature of pain, and beneath the glory of her features, there was character and a sure knowledge of suffering. She was 18. She was the most beautiful woman in 100 years. She didn't seem to care. You all right? Her mother asked. Buttercup sipped her cocoa. Fine, she said. You're sure? Her father wondered. Yes, Buttercup replied. There was a very long pause. But I must never love again. She never did.